Coming up for you this Friday, has the election season started? Many would argue yes. Well, tonight, leader of the Coalition of Independents discuss what he feels are the more prominent issues that will determine the election outcome. Bain also shares thoughts on the FNM's two-session suspension from Parliament this week. And this question for him, though, is the COI appealing to voters? Also tonight, what will be the driving issues that get Bahamians voting? How will the electorate vote? Will they vote on issues related to crime or the economy? We talk about it in our Hot Topic segment. And also, a little bit later for you, meet the youngest fan of Beyond the Headlines. The 6-year-old's grandmother says she doesn't miss a night. You'll meet her and hear from her coming up. This is Beyond the Headlines. Good evening. I'm Shenique Miller. It's great to have you along this evening. Well, political posturing has started. Many see the beginning of 2025 as the official start of the campaign season, and a lot is on the line. Political parties will have to do a lot to convince the Bahamian people. And so, what will the issues be that influence the decision that Bahamians will have to make? The Coalition of Independents leader Lincoln Bain joins me this evening to discuss these issues during a time when there's so much happening in the nation. And so, of course, we get started. Good evening to you, Lincoln. Welcome to Beyond the Headlines. It's good to have you here.
Good evening, Shenique, and thanks for having me here.
Yes, absolutely. Lincoln, let's just start with what transpired in Parliament this week. A lot of action in the last 2 weeks, in fact. We saw that the Free National Movement, in a protest for what they say is unfair treatment by House Speaker Patricia DeVoe, and also for a cry for democracy, flung the mace out the window as a form of protest. And then as a result of that action, just this week, were issued a suspension. All 6 members outside of Dr. Minnis issued a suspension for 2 sittings of Parliament. Let's just start right there. Do you think, based on what their argument is and the fact that they say, listen, hold up, man, the reason we are crying out and trying to bring attention and made such a bold move is because we need democracy in the House and to be treated fairly, is because the Speaker, as they are saying, is not fair to them. So do you think that suspension was warranted?
Yes, I think the suspension was warranted. And what we need Michael Pintard to do is to stop being weak and soft. If you are going to protest and you know you're going to break the law, not just protest because that's not against the law. If you know you're going to break the law, which they did by grabbing the mace, they assaulted, that was assault and battery by wetting up the House Speaker, and you grab the instrument that belongs to the House Speaker and you threw it out of the window. That could be a range of charges, all right, because it belongs to the Speaker at this time. When Pinlin and those did it, it didn't belong to anyone. And so they had to make a decision in law to make everything in the House of Assembly belong to the Speaker so that if it happens in the future, that you could be charged.
Also, so in 1965, people were saying, hey, no, there was a cause, there was a reason, those men were sort of fighting for something.
Yeah.
But you were saying, even though that instrument, as important as it was then,
yes,
symbolically, really sort of had no real significance to it as it does now.
No, it had significance to it then, legal significance, because we were under the Queen. And so the mace, you could not have the House of Assembly without the mace being present. We are now an independent nation. And so now the mace and everything else belongs to the House Speaker. And the reason they did that was because in order to convict Pinlin and Malo Butler, etc., you had to determine, okay, who owns this property? And at the time, no one owned it. But now it is owned by the House Speaker. All right, it is symbolic. It was a weapon. It was one of the most famous weapons back in medieval times. It was better than a sword. It was a bludgeoning weapon with sharp edges on it, and it could pierce armor, and that's what it was for. And just like a judge has a hammer, and that's a weapon. It's to say that I'm in charge. I have a weapon. Everyone in here behave. That was the purpose of the mace symbolically, but. Now it's more of a symbolic thing more than a legal thing. And so what I'm saying is, when Martin Luther King went out to block a bridge, when he went out to sit in a restaurant and eat, even though it was illegal, he knew he was doing something that he could get in trouble for. You don't cry after doing it. You go out there and you be a man and you said, I am doing this to take a stand. I've been locked up multiple times for protesting when I did nothing illegal, just for being there. And I don't go out and cry and complain
but Lincoln, in all fairness, I don't recall seeing Michael Pintard crying.
They are complaining about the treatment of the police, and this is the problem I have. Rules the House, all right, in law. All right? No one else, the Prime Minister, the Commissioner of Police, none of them have say in that House. If the Speaker says take these men out, they can take them out. Where I would have had a problem is if they had started punching them and kicking them and stumping them, like happened to protesters on on Goodman's Bay Beach during the CARICOM situation. If that had happened, I would say, no, you can't actually hit the ministers. No, they just lift them up like they did Milo Butler, like they did A.D. Hanna and Pinland and others, and carry them out of the House. What's your big complaint? The Speaker said carry you out, you come out, and then you do what you have to do. The problem I have with the way Pintard is doing things is that I approached him a week before, and I told him to stop being weak, and I told him to do his job. His job is not to come outside like an activist. We have activists for that. Activists can come outside and bring attention to what's going on. He is the chairman of the PAC, and everything he is asking of the government, he can actually summons them. He can summons every document, every bank account, every record. He can summons even the Prime Minister to sit in the front of him and question the Prime Minister. He has that authority.
So you're saying that he has not been using that authority that's right in his hand, and instead is resorting to something like this.
And I heard him being interviewed a couple of days ago, and he was saying that, yeah, the PAC has met. Okay, they've met, but what have you done? If you have summoned someone to come before you and they've not come, then you take them to court and you deal with them.
Right.
Shenique, this is the problem. The opposition is the police of the government. All right? Just like the police, if a business is doing wrong, the police goes in there and locks them up and put them before the court, right? And the court gives them a punishment. If the governing side or the executives are not doing what they're supposed to do, the opposition has the power to put them before the courts to make them do what they're supposed to do. And if the Speaker isn't doing what she's supposed to do, then simply you put her before the court.
You're saying there's real recourse for that if indeed she is being unfair, she is being undemocratic towards the opposition.
You put her before the courts and the courts will say, stop that.
But don't you
Perry
think
Christie, who was an opposition leader at the time, he did the same thing to Hubert Ingram. Hubert Ingram had put a senator there saying that they were independent. Perry said that person is not independent. That's there for them. Ingram said, I only have to consult with you. Perry said, no, that's not the spirit of the law. Perry took him to court. He didn't go outside protesting. He didn't grab the mace and throw it out the House. He used his power as leader of the opposition and took it to court, and the court said Perry is right. It's not the spirit of the law. Sorry, I shouldn't say Perry. Mr. Christie is right. It's not the spirit of the law, and you, Ingram, you must remove that person. And that's what happened. Pinland, when he was in the opposition, he would force commissions of inquiry. He forced the UBP to have commission of inquiry. The F&M forced the PLP to have commission of inquiry. It looks like Pintard and Shannon Dawn and Dwayne Sands don't know their job. We need a government that works, and the opposition is a part of the government. And all I'm asking for is a strong opposition. I want you to understand the last thing. If you go to the police and complain that someone did something to you, all right, that person is wrong that did something to you. But when the police isn't doing their job, you have a right to go to the police and say, what are you doing? I made this complaint a long time ago. So that's what I was doing. I was going to the opposition, who was the police. So
that's when you went there, Lincoln, and interfered with his news conference, Lincoln, you know you did that. This is what you were doing, trying to say, hi, Pintard, hello, I'm here, I'm listening to you. I stood by and watched and listened. What are you doing?
I didn't interfere with anybody's news conference. I was in the House. I stood up for him in the House of Assembly and told him that they should not silence the opposition. I went outside to the media and I stood up for the opposition and said they should not silence the media. He came outside to speak to the public who was outside. And it was too noisy out there. And so one of the media persons said, let's go inside and do it. He was out there to the public, all right? And I was there. I was invited into the House by the Speaker, all right? And I was escorted into the House by the police. So I was not a stranger who was not supposed to be there. And so we went into this, what I know to be the smoker's room, and he spoke. We let him speak. No one interrupted him. We let him talk.
But are you being, because Lincoln, you the week before, you did criticize Michael Pintard and say, hey, listen, come on, man, you need to stand up. You need to do more. You need to perhaps be more vocal, more visible. Well, he did that. So then, Lincoln, the thing is, and it's okay, he chose the way he would do it. Lincoln, are you being unfair by,
no, Shenique, that's
saying,
not what I told him to do.
By saying how you did it, I don't agree with.
I don't just want you to be more vocal and more visible. I told him what he can do. Use your powers of the PAC. I said file injunctions against the government. If the speaker is not treating you fairly, you can take it to court. She does not have all powers. The king himself, King James, who had the Bible edited, King James was taken before the courts by Parliament. And that's where we get the rule of parliamentary sovereignty, because they said, although you're the king, what you're doing is not fair. And so now we're putting Parliament in charge, because they represent the people. And so they took his power. So if the king was subject to the courts, then you can do the same thing like other leaders of the opposition who know how to use their powers did. And that's what I'm telling him. We need you inside the House. All right? Use the powers of the PAC. Don't jump up outside and say, oh, what did the government do with this? What did the government do with that? And here's the main problem that the FNM is having, more than anything else. They have a credibility problem. All right? And that's because whenever they open their mouths, there's nothing that they can say that the PLP is doing that the FNM is not guilty of. Nothing. Talk about procurement law. How much contracts was given out by the FNM? The drones, did that go out to tender? The school, the education network that they put in place, did that go out to tender?
But those were different, sir. Those were the emergency times.
Drones were not emergency.
Not the drones. I'm talking the education, sort of that
was
online
not an
program.
emergency.
That was during COVID, and so they figured
yes.
they had to quickly jump on that
no,
to
that
get
was an
students.
excuse, and it never worked. All right, and that's the problem. All right, and so there were a lot of other things. That's just some loose examples. They were not going by procurement. They were going to give away our heritage sites to a group that the chairman of the FNM was a part of. All right, these things people remember. They think that Bahamians forget. Bahamians do not forget, and so they have no credibility. You're calling on the government to bring VAT. Okay, did you bring? Sorry, not VAT. Freedom of Information Act. Did you bring the Freedom of Information Act? And so this is the problems that they're having. All we want is a government that works. We need the government to govern, and the opposition to hold their foot to the fire, but use your powers within the law to do it.
Well,
Stop sitting down and waiting your turn.
Let's speak about that's what you think is happening, just sitting and waiting
Just
the turn.
sitting and waiting his turn. And I don't want anyone to think I'm defending the government in saying this. The government has its flaws, and they're admitting that, and they have their issues. And so we've been standing up to the government for the last 3 years, and the FNM has been nowhere in sight. And they're not fighting for anything that deals with the Bahamian people. This fight for them is that they are being silenced. They personally feel that they're being silenced in the House. They don't care about the Bahamian people because
You don't think all of this fight and all of this sort of pushback at the speaker is for the purpose of presenting and representing the Bahamian people's views?
No, because they've not been representing the views of Bahamian people. Nothing that affects the Bahamian people, they have been interested in dealing with. All right, and that's what a lot of Bahamians are seeing. Only stuff that deals with them politically. We were fighting the government over shanty towns and over illegal immigration situations. The FNM was silent on that. They came out when it was Keith Bell and they just attacked Keith Bell, but they never addressed the shanty town and illegal immigration issues. They just attacked Keith Bell politically. But nothing that affects us. BPL and the situation going on with BPL right now, where's the opposition on that?
Yeah.
Where are they on the issues that really affect us?
Well, speaking of the issues that really affect us, Lincoln, you know it perhaps better than I do that the political season has started.
Yes.
And certainly Bahamians have so much. I mean, it almost mirrors what the not quite, what the U.S. sort of voted on, but certainly issues of inflation in the economy, crime, and just sort of quality of life. What do you think are going to be, or perhaps already are, the most prominent issues, urgent issues that will determine the outcome of the election?
The most prominent issue is the same issue that we've always had for the last probably 20, 25 years, corruption. We always have the opposition accusing the government of being corrupt. That has been going on for the last 25 years, back and forward, back and forward. Other issues that we have is, of course, immigration and the cost of living.
I want to get to that immigration in a minute.
But the last government, the FNM government, when they were in opposition, the Minister administration, they just campaigned on corruption. They just said corruption, corruption. They didn't even present a plan to the people. no plan, no manifesto to the Bahamian people. And so it was just corruption. And so that's a big concern, and that is corruption. And if we can't get our country together, it seems like every term we get embarrassed internationally. Last time it was the Bain deal under the FNM, and that's why they don't have, the credibility to say anything. And this time we had FTX, and now we're having this situation. And so Bahamians are tired of the back and forth and the corruption.
Now, let's talk about immigration. President Trump has made very clear during his campaign that, listen, he's going to get rid of the criminals who happen to be legal aliens in the United States. More recently, he updated, other than asking recently, listen, can you all countries accept some of these people we want to deport? He sort of fine-tuned it and say, countries that do not accept their own citizens who are and have committed crimes in the United States, he will not do business with them. What does our immigration policy need to look like? Want to stand up to that? And then how do we navigate accepting our own citizens, not the other foreigners that was initially presented, our own citizens back here, and to be able to kind of put things in place that keeps Bahamian, again, crime is an issue, that keep Bahamian safe?
You ever heard that saying, chickens come home to roost? A concern out there is that a lot of passports have been sold under not just this administration, but under the government, all right? Passports have been sold, and people were getting passports that should not have gotten them, and all kind of documents, but especially passports. So now, if you have people getting deported back here with our passport but cannot speak English, and have never been here, now it's going to be exposed. The whole thing is going to come unhinged. And so I think that's one of the biggest concerns that government officials, not just this administration, because other administrations did it too, that's the biggest concern that they're going to have. You're now getting criminals that came through the Bahamas, got something straight, and went over there. We heard pilots saying, and of course this is speculation, stuff that they were seeing passports going into Haiti, and this needs to be investigated. No one investigated it. No. We called for a commission of inquiry on it, and of course they ignored it. I think this is an important commission of inquiry to have, but they avoided the commission of inquiry by proroguing the House. Notice they never said why they prorogued the House, but we believe they prorogued the House because then they would have probably had to have that commission inquiry that we were calling for, and then they just transferred the minister out. But this is an important issue that has been happening. They've been selling our birthright, and this country belongs to us, and we cannot allow ourselves to be outnumbered because we have majority rule, and that's why I've been fighting. Even though it's not a popular fight, it's not a good fight to fight when you're a politician, because you're going to offend some people, all right? And some people who see themselves from a certain direction. But I have to put what is right, defense of my country over winning an election. I have to put defense of my country over a vote. And that's what my mission has been, Shenique.
Yes. Now, Lincoln, let's look at the Coalition of Independence. How are you all resonating? Are you all resonating? Are you all appealing and attracting the voters? You went to Grand Bahama recently and participated in a by-election, and that didn't work out in your favor. So let's just look, as we all look towards 2025, which everyone is totally convinced and sold on. This is going to be the start of the campaign season. Let's just talk about the Coalition of Independence. You've already rolled out your slate of candidates ahead of everyone else, but how would you say, truly is the coalition looking? I
think that the people have gone back and forth so much that more and more they are tired of it. They want something new. They just wanted a good option to try. I think that they've been disappointed back and forth, and so now they're going to try something new. And everywhere you go, you either hear people saying that they're not going to vote or they're tired of the PLP and FNM. And I've heard this from PLPs and FNMs, even persons entrenched in their parties who are saying, wow, we going door to door, and people saying they ain't want PLP or FNM. And some people are telling them that they're going to try something different, they're going to try COI. It is happening. And so I think that if Bahamians are smart, they're going to treat this like, a woman who's been hurt so much that she has to finally move on. As long as you're letting him mistreat you, he's going to continue to mistreat you because he feels you have nowhere to go. You have no choice. And that's how they've been treating the Bahamian people. You could choose a PLP or our friends, the FNM, and you have no choice. But when that woman starts looking at someone else, guess what happens? All of a sudden, that man have to treat her different. You have to be like, oh my God, I might lose her. And if only for the fact that they need to be punished for their failures of the past and their mistreatment of the Bahamian people of the past, if only for that reason, we should try something different. And also, put some real strong people in the House of Assembly. Some people who know what to do. Have some opposition, like back in the day when A.D. Hanna and Pinlan and all them was in there. Have some real opposition in the House, and that's what we need.
That's missing, huh? I thank you very much, Coalition of Independence leader Lincoln Bain, stopping by this evening to address a number of issues as all of us really sort of look forward to 2025 and what is projected to be a very politically active year, certainly, of course, as we near the general election. I thank you once again, Mr. Bain. Thank you for joining us here on Beyond the Headlines. Don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we are going to get some opinions on a lot of what Lincoln Bain had to say from the Hot Topics panel, and in particular zero in on what the panelists feel will be sort of those real major issues that Bahamians need addressed that will determine how they vote. Beyond the Headlines is back right after this.